Hey, it's Vincent here from Vincent Games, your untapped source of MTG tips, info and discussion. Welcome to episode 5 of my MTG vlog. I've been up to quite a fair bit in the last couple of weeks. I haven't done a vlog episode for I think 2, maybe 3 weeks now. I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, so I thought it was about time I updated the vlog with something. And it's not because I haven't been playing Magic. I've been, as I say, very busy doing lots of Magic things. I took part in an Axial event a little while ago, I mentioned in the previous vlog, and also done an online PTQ for Standard, taking black-white zombies for another spin, and just general testing, doing a lot of testing for Modern, because there's a GP coming up in the weekend of the 11th or 12th of August. The format's Modern, and I want to be bringing something very powerful, so I've been practicing with Affinity, practicing that deck rather, pretty hard. That's partly why I took it to Axiom, because I wanted to practice with it there. And I think that it's just one of these decks that continuously proves that it's a force to be reckoned with, even with all this Death Shadow and Eldritron stuff going on, and all the sorts of things that have happened in Modern's past. Affinity is always there in the background, proving that you've got to be able to answer that deck, otherwise you'll just lose to it. And I think there is a significant edge to be had if you are a good Affinity pilot. I mean, I think there is arguably you're going to be in a good position regardless of what deck you play if you're very familiar with the deck that you're choosing, just because Modern is quite an open format in general. There's a lot of different decks that you could viably play and not be completely hamstrung for doing so. And given the deck's power, I think that's a good spot to be in, to have that sort of edge of being very well practiced with the deck, but also the deck in itself in a vacuum is just incredibly powerful. So I kind of want to try and leverage that a little bit to try and do as well as possible in this upcoming GP. That being said, metagaming is not completely dead within Modern. I think you'd be a little bit silly to say, oh, I'm not gonna worry about all the other decks that exist in Modern, because it's all about just playing one deck well and just getting that edge. I mean, yes, you will have an advantage to knowing a deck well and knowing the different lines available to you in various situations, and also against other decks of the format. But you got to kind of prepare, at least to some degree, for what you expect to see. I mean, there's no point, for example, let's just use a rather extreme example. If Burn was doing particularly well, let's say it was consistently, let's say Burn was the best deck, is what I'm getting at. Let's say that was just inherently true, that Burn was the best deck and you were expecting to play against a lot of Burn. If you were taking Fairies, for example, and you thought to yourself, well, I don't need to worry about the Burn matchup because I've practiced with Fairies, I know the deck very well, and that's fine, then you're going to have a hard time going into a competitive Modern tournament if Burn is considered the best deck, because you're going to see a lot of that deck and it's not a great matchup for you. So choosing a deck that you know very well, if it's going to have a particularly bad matchup against what will be a considerable portion of the field, is something you really need to think about when choosing a deck. And it's, I think, finding a balance between a deck that you're very comfortable with and you know very well, and metagaming as well. You can't really ignore either of those things, and you really need to think about that when choosing the deck that you want to bring. It's partly why I think the format is so popular at the moment. There's a lot you can do. There's a lot of options open to you, and also there's a massive diversity in the types of decks you can play against, which keeps people coming back to the format. It's interesting to play against different decks rather than the same few decks again and again and again. The format is very diverse, and there's lots of things to think about when you are approaching a tournament like this, and you don't want to be sitting on your laurels and thinking, oh, well, I know this one deck very well and that is sufficient to attack the tournament. No, you've got to think about these other powerful strategies that exist and at least respect them and be aware of them and have some sort of plan. So coming back to Affinity, for example, my tactic against blue-white, for example, it's a horrific matchup. Might be, it's probably the worst, that and Jeskai control, probably one of the worst matchups that I could have. And my tactic could be, I'm not going to dedicate any sideboard slots. I could go really extreme and just say, no, I'm just going to accept that matchup is very, very difficult and hope not to play it, and pour my resources into battling the other archetypes that exist, and just try to simply do the linear thing of overwhelm them with lots of artifact creatures and hope that's enough in the games that I play against them, and just try and fight around Stony Silence and things like that. You might think that's not a very good strategy, but that's the point I'm trying to make. At least I would be thinking about that deck and coming up with a plan against it, rather than just thinking, oh, I've practiced with Affinity most and I'm fine with that, and it doesn't matter about blue-white. At least have a plan against your bad matchups, or as many matchups as you can conceive, and have a way in your mind that you imagine beating them, rather than just thinking, I'm good with deck X or Y and that's going to be enough. I think that's important, having a little plan about how you expect to face against the variety of decks in the field, and going from there. But beyond Magic, what else have I been up to? I've been seeing some family and just enjoying the company of a family and relaxing the last couple of weekends, which has been very nice. Also took a chance to visit a little comic book store up in Red Hill, which was really cool. It's called Milk, which I think it's spelled like M-I-W-K, something like that. It's a very, very small little place, but it was really quite cool. Had lots of interesting things there, and I managed to get some things that I haven't actually got yet. One of these things, big Doctor Who fan, one of these things is Power of the Daleks. The original episode back in the 60s was lost. They've only got the audio or bits of the audio, and they've recreated it using animation, piecing together the audio from that. So that is going to be very enjoyable. Very sad, nerdy thing, but there we are. And to take it up to the next level, back issue of Doctor Who magazine from 1994. And the reason I bought this is pure nostalgia. Obviously, I would have only been, I was born in 88, so what's that, 6 years old? Oh, tell a lie, sorry, 1993. There was a couple I could have bought, and one of them was 94. But this one's 93, so I would have been about 5. The reason I bought it was, I'm pretty sure I probably wasn't watching Doctor Who at the age of 5, but there's an episode, Planet of the Daleks, that they've got a feature on here, which I used to watch on VCR, episode with John Pertwee. My parents had recorded off the telly, and there's a little feature in there, so I just wanted to read about that. That was pretty cool. So again, properly nerding it up there. And finally, I also got this, which I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. I think it's going to be my new life pad, but if anyone's played any of the Fallout series, I've got a Vault 111 from the new Fallout game. Well, it's not that new anymore, but I enjoy very much using that. So that's about it for me for now, and all of this modern practice and playtesting has got me thinking, how are you guys preparing for a tournament? How are you thinking about modern, may not be modern, maybe standard? What do you think about more? What do you prioritise more? Do you prioritise comfort level with a deck, or knowledge of a deck, your ability to know what to do, how the deck works, how the deck plays? Or do you prefer the idea of that a deck being better against the meta that you might be taking? It might even just be an FNM. You think, right, okay, I know that a lot of the people that play are going to be taking these decks, so do I change it up because of that? Or do you just like to tweak a deck that you're kind of building and in response to what you've seen? Yeah, so what's your kind of default in that? I'd be really curious to see how they think about these sorts of things and how they approach them when they make those kind of decisions, because I think that's very important. Like, it's easy to forget about the decisions you make before the tournament, and think, well, I made no mistakes during the tournament, and that's great if you didn't make any mistakes during the tournament. You think, oh, my play was really tight, but I just brought the wrong deck. I just brought a deck that had no chance against this field. So yeah, it's good to kind of think about how you're going to approach the tournament and evaluate it. So I'll be really keen to hear your thoughts about that in the comments below. In the meantime, if you're enjoying these videos, then do consider subscribing. There's going to be plenty more content. I'll also put up the standard PTQ that I did online as well with Black White Zombies. The tournament didn't go particularly well for me. The finish was very sort of mediocre. Interesting learning. Hour of Devastation was about quite a bit. Obviously, since then, there's been a lot of other decks that have come out. Standard is in a really good place right now, I think, between the mono red strategies, like Eternalize being very relevant in Constructed. I thought that ability would just be completely irrelevant, but actually between Champion of Wits and Godpharaoh's Gift, there's even that Godpharaoh's Gift deck that won another PTQ. That's pretty crazy. So they're big things. Glorybringer is still everywhere. Standard's really great right now, and if you've been upset with it for a while, I think now is a really good time to kind of shake yourself off and just sort of get back into it, because there's a lot of decks and it's really good. But anyway, follow me on Facebook, and don't forget that I also run a podcast, glimmerofgenius.podbean.com. You can find it there, and also in the links below too. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more.